Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you navigate all the latest tech. And today I'm pumped to dig into smartwatches in 2025. To be honest, even I feel a little lost with all the choices out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to take in, especially if it's been a while since you've shopped for a new smartwatch. All the brands, all the features.
Exactly. So to break it all down, we're going to be using this awesome article from Tech Radar. They're pretty much the go-to for tech reviews.
They are.
And hopefully by the time we're done here, you'll feel confident about picking the perfect smartwatch, one that fits your wrist, your lifestyle, and of course your budget.
That's the goal. We're going to pull out the juiciest bits from that Tech Radar article. We'll cover the basics, and we'll dive into some of the more, advanced features so you can make a smart choice. No pun intended.
Okay, so before we get into specific models, the names and all that, can we just talk about smartwatches in general? I mean, it's almost crazy how much these things can do now. It's way beyond just telling time.
Right. It really is incredible how much they pack into these tiny devices. Think about it. You've got sleep tracking, stress monitoring, even making payments with a tap of your wrist, and navigation. Forget about pulling out your phone. These things can guide you turn by turn through a whole new city.
It's basically like having a mini computer strapped to your wrist, which I guess it kind of is. But with all this stuff they can do, I think it's super important to remember that not all smartwatches are made equal.
Exactly. And Tech Radar really hits on that point. They sort of divide the smartwatch world into two main camps, right? You've got Apple Watches for iPhone users, and then you have everything else, which is basically for Android.
So right off the bat, you've got to pick a side, Apple or Android. It's like choosing your Hogwarts house. Once you're in, you're in.
Haha. Love that analogy. And then even within those camps, you have so many more choices to make. It really depends on how much you want to spend and, of course, which features are most important to you.
All right, so let's get into the specifics. Hit me with some of those models Tech Radar recommends. I'm ready to hear about the cream of the crop.
Let's do it. We'll start with their top pick overall, the Apple Watch Ultra 2. They call it the ultimate smartwatch, especially if you're adventurous or a real tech enthusiast.
I've heard good things about the Ultra 2, but I've also heard it's pretty expensive. Is it actually worth the splurge?
I'd say it depends. If you're looking for the toughest Apple Watch, the one that can handle anything, and you want the absolute best battery life, then yeah, the Ultra 2 is probably it. It's got a rugged titanium case, the display is super bright and responsive, and it has that new S9 processor, which is about a lot more than just speed.
Oh, really? What's so special about this S9 processor? Is it just faster than the last one?
It's definitely fast, but it goes beyond that. The S9 enables all sorts of cool stuff, like what they call double tap. Basically, you can control the watch with subtle hand gestures, which is awesome for accessibility, and it just makes things way more convenient.
Wow, that is impressive. Okay, so the Ultra 2 is top of the line for sure. But what if you're an iPhone user and, maybe on a bit more of a budget?
Well, for iPhone users who are looking for value, Tech Radar recommends the Apple Watch SE2. It doesn't have every single bell and whistle like the Ultra 2, but it's still fantastic for health and fitness tracking, and you get that seamless connection with iOS, which is a big plus for iPhone folks.
I'm always curious about those budget-friendly options because sometimes they're all you really need.
Totally agree. And the SE2 is a great example of that. It has the same powerful S8 chip as the more expensive Series 8, so you're not sacrificing performance. It's perfect if you want that core Apple Watch experience without spending a fortune.
Okay, so we've got the Apple side covered. What about the Android users out there? What are some of their best options?
Well, on the Android side, you can't talk about smartwatches without talking about Samsung. They're a huge player, and their top offering is the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra. It definitely gives the Apple Watch Ultra a run for its money.
Yeah, I've heard the Galaxy Watch Ultra has insane battery life. Is that true?
Absolutely. One of its biggest selling points is that multi-day battery life. We're talking up to 100 hours on a single charge. Pretty remarkable.
100 hours, that's like 4 days. You could go on a long weekend trip and not even worry about packing a charger.
Right. It's perfect for people who are always on the go or hate having to charge their devices all the time.
Besides that crazy battery, what else makes the Galaxy Watch Ultra stand out?
Well, like the Apple Watch Ultra, it's built tough with that durable titanium. And it has a gorgeous Super AMOLED display, which really pops. But I think where it really shines is in its health and fitness tracking. It takes things to a whole new level.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these advanced health features.
It goes way beyond just counting steps and checking your heart rate. The Galaxy Watch Ultra has sensors for ECG and even blood pressure monitoring, which can be super valuable if you need to keep a close eye on your health.
Wow, that's seriously impressive. So the Galaxy Watch Ultra is definitely a powerhouse in the Android world. But what if you're an Android user who's like all about Google? What's the best option for them?
Well, if you're all about that Google life and you have a Pixel phone, then the Google Pixel Watch 3 is designed with you in mind.
I've seen pictures, and the Pixel Watch 3 is sleek. It definitely has that signature Google minimalist look.
It does. It's known for its clean design and that tight integration with the whole Google ecosystem. And of course, it runs on Wear OS 5, which is Google's own smartwatch operating system.
For those of us who aren't like smartwatch experts, can you give us a quick rundown of what Wear OS is all about?
Sure. Think of Wear OS as Google's version of Apple's watchOS. It's made to give Android users a smooth, easy-to-use experience. You've got things like Google Assistant built right in, and you can access a ton of apps from the Google Play Store.
So if you're an Android user who loves Google, the Pixel Watch 3 seems like a no-brainer.
Yep.
It's all about that seamless ecosystem. But even if you're not like a die-hard Google fan, there are still tons of great Wear OS watches out there.
Okay, so we've covered Apple, Samsung, and Google. What other brands are worth checking out in the smartwatch world?
One brand that's really been making a name for itself in the Wear OS space is OnePlus. They've got this new watch, the OnePlus Watch 2, and it's getting a lot of buzz for its long battery life, its fitness tracking accuracy, and its sleek design.
I've heard good things about OnePlus phones, so I'm definitely curious about their smartwatch.
What's really cool about the OnePlus Watch 2 is that it packs a ton of features, but still manages to deliver crazy good battery life. We're talking up to 100 hours on a single charge, which is on par with that Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra.
That's wild. It sounds like the OnePlus Watch 2 is a great option for Android users who are all about that battery life.
For sure. And it's pretty stylish, too. Very comfortable to wear.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to make sure we don't leave anyone out. What about options for folks who are shopping on a tighter budget? Absolutely. Not everyone wants to drop a ton of cash on a smartwatch, and luckily there are some amazing options out there that give you a lot of bang for your buck.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some of these budget-friendly gems?
Well, one that Tech Radar really likes for budget-minded folks is the CMF Watch Pro. It's made by a company called Nothing.
Nothing. Is that really the name?
Yep. They're kind of a newer company, but they've been getting a lot of attention. They're big on minimalist design, and their focus is on making tech that's both affordable and looks good.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's so special about this CMF Watch Pro?
Well, the coolest thing about this watch is that it works with both iOS and Android, which is pretty rare, especially at this price point.
Wait, so you're saying I could use this watch with my iPhone, even though it's not an Apple Watch?
You got it. It's built to play nicely with both operating systems, which is great if you don't want to be tied down to one ecosystem or another.
That's super cool. So it sounds like the CMF Watch Pro is a fantastic option for people who want a stylish smartwatch that doesn't break the bank. And they don't have to be in like the Apple or Android camp.
Exactly. Plus, on top of all that, it has ridiculous battery life. Up to 13 days on a single charge.
13 days? That's crazy. I don't even get that out of my phone.
It's pretty impressive. Nothing's doing some interesting stuff. Definitely a company to watch.
Okay, so we've seen a ton of great smartwatch options. But now I'm kind of feeling overwhelmed. How do I actually choose the right one? There's so much to think about.
Well, that's what we're going to tackle next. Let's dive a little deeper into those factors you should be considering. Beyond just looking at the specific models, we'll talk compatibility, battery life, how to get the most value for your money, all that good stuff.
Okay, so it feels like we've just walked through a smartwatch showroom. So many cool options. But before anyone out there hits that buy now button, I think we need to talk strategy.
I agree. It's easy to get caught up in all the fancy features and the hype. But picking the right smartwatch, it's not just about finding the shiniest new model.
Exactly. It's about finding the one that fits, your lifestyle, your needs, and of course, your budget.
Right. And Tech Radar really emphasizes this. They say there are these 3 key factors to think about beyond just the specific models: compatibility, battery life, and value for money.
Okay, compatibility seems simple enough, right? iPhone, Apple Watch, Android. Android Watch. Is it really that straightforward?
It's mostly that simple, yeah. But there are some little things to keep in mind. Apple Watches, those are definitely only for iPhone users. If you've got an Android phone, you'll need to look at those other brands, Samsung, Google, or anything running Wear OS.
Speaking of Wear OS, we talked about it a little earlier, but I think some of our listeners might not be totally familiar with it. Could you give us a quick explainer?
Of course. So Wear OS is basically Google's own operating system, designed just for smartwatches. Think of it like Android, but for your wrist. It's really smooth and intuitive. You can use Google Assistant, and there are tons of apps you can get from the Google Play Store.
So if you're like super into Google, a Wear OS watch just makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about that integration. But even within the Wear OS world, some watches work better with certain phones. Like if you have a Samsung phone, a Samsung Galaxy Watch is going to give you the best experience, all the features, and everything will work seamlessly.
So it's kind of like a family thing. They work best with their own siblings. But what about brands like Fitbit and Garmin? Are they more open to like playing with other phone families?
That's a good point. Fitbit, Garmin, even that CMF Watch Pro by Nothing, those are a bit more system agnostic. They really focus on fitness tracking, and they tend to use their own apps and platforms, which usually work fine with both iPhones and Android phones.
So if you're someone who switches between iPhone and Android, or just doesn't want to feel locked into one specific ecosystem, those might be worth checking out.
Exactly. Okay, moving on to battery life. This is a big one, right? I think it's a pain point for a lot of people. No one wants their smartwatch dying in the middle of the day.
Battery life is a deal breaker for me. I'm always running around, and the thought of having to charge yet another device, it makes me cringe.
I feel you. But the good news is, TechRadar found that most of the smartwatches on their list can handle a full day of use on a single charge. But they did call out a few that really impressed them with their battery life.
Okay, tell me about these battery champs. I need details.
The two that stood out were the Samsung Galaxy Watch Ultra and the OnePlus Watch 2. Both of those can last for multiple days on a single charge.
Multiple days. No way. What's the secret? Do they have like some kind of magical battery technology?
It's a few things working together, really. Bigger batteries, more efficient processors, and the software is optimized to save power.
So if long battery life is like your top priority, those are the watches to check out. But I'm guessing those impressive battery numbers come with a trade-off, right?
There's usually a trade-off, yeah. Those watches with super long battery life might cost a bit more, or they might be a little bulkier on your wrist.
Makes sense. It's all about finding that balance, right? Features, functionality, and then what you personally like.
Right. Now, let's talk about value for money. Because it's tempting, right? To just go for the most expensive smartwatch, the one with all the bells and whistles. But it's really important to think about what you actually need.
Oh, I'm totally guilty of getting caught up in the hype of new tech. Sometimes I forget to ask myself, do I actually need this?
That's a great point. Before you spend a bunch of money on a top-of-the-line smartwatch, take a minute and think, am I going to use all these fancy features? Do you need a watch that can track your blood oxygen levels? Or would you be just as happy with a more basic model that just tracks your steps and sleep?
It's like, be honest with yourself about what you need and what your budget is. You don't want to end up with a smartwatch that has a ton of features you never use.
Exactly. And sometimes that more affordable option is all you need, and it saves you money. The key is figuring out which features are must-haves for you, and then finding a watch that has them at a price that works.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got compatibility, battery life, and value for money. Are there any other, like, super important things to think about when you're choosing a smartwatch?
Yeah, one thing that TechRadar is really big on is privacy. Especially now with all these advanced health sensors, smartwatches are collecting a ton of data about you.
That's a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that too much. The privacy side of wearing a device that tracks so much.
It's definitely something to be aware of. Before you put on any smartwatch, spend a little time reading their privacy policy. You want to know how they handle your data, where's the information stored, who has access to it. Those are important questions.
So it's not just about finding a cool watch. It's also about finding a brand that you trust with your personal information.
Exactly. Now, another question that comes up a lot is whether there are smartwatches specifically designed for, women or men.
I've wondered about that myself. Is it just marketing? Or are there actual differences between men's and women's smartwatches?
According to TechRadar, there aren't really any inherent differences. Most smartwatches are designed to be unisex.
So it's not like you have pink smartwatches for women and blue smartwatches for men.
Nope. It's more about finding a smartwatch that fits comfortably on your wrist and has the features you want, regardless of your gender.
But you mentioned earlier that some smartwatches have features related to women's health, like tracking menstrual cycles. Are those features only on certain models?
Usually those features are like optional add-ons or apps that you can choose to use or not, so you don't have to worry about buying a smartwatch that's like specifically marketed towards women if you don't need those features.
Okay, that makes sense. It's really all about finding a smartwatch that fits your own needs and what you like, no matter your gender.
Exactly. And speaking of what you like, let's talk about style for a minute. Because how a smartwatch looks does matter, right? Especially since you're going to be wearing it on your wrist all day.
Well, for sure. I'm all about form meeting function. I want my tech to look good and work well.
And luckily, there are tons of smartwatches out there to fit every style. Whether you like sleek and minimal, sporty and rugged, you can find one that reflects your own personal taste.
I love that. So it's not just about ticking off a list of features. It's about finding one that you actually enjoy looking at.
Absolutely. Okay, before we move on, I want to touch on one more important thing when it comes to choosing a smartwatch: the testing process.
Yeah. How do we know that these Tech Radar recommendations are legit? What's going on behind the scenes?
TechRadar takes their testing seriously. They do real-world testing. They don't just look at the marketing materials or the specs from the manufacturer. They actually use these smartwatches in their everyday lives.
So they're out there running marathons, using them to pay for stuff, navigating through busy cities, all with these smartwatches.
That's right. They put these watches through the ringer to see how they hold up in real-life situations. They track their workouts, see how long the battery actually lasts, compare the GPS accuracy to other devices. They really dig into all the features, so you can be sure their recommendations are based on real experience, not just hype.
Okay, that definitely makes me feel more confident about their picks. Knowing that they've actually used these watches extensively makes a huge difference.
Yeah, they're not just reading off a spec sheet. They're sharing their firsthand experience with you. So you can trust that their recommendations are based on solid testing and thoughtful consideration.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground. Compatibility, battery life, value for money, privacy, even style, and the whole testing process. I'm feeling way more informed about the world of smartwatches. But I'm still curious about what the future holds for these devices.
That's a great question. We've laid the groundwork, so now I think it's time to look ahead. Let's talk about the future of smartwatches. What trends are we seeing? What new features can we expect in the next few years?
I can't wait to hear your predictions. Let's jump into the future of wrist-worn technology.
So, wow, we really have covered a lot in this deep dive, all things smartwatches in 2025, from picking the right operating system, figuring out those key features, to thinking about privacy and how these things are actually tested.
Big thanks to TechRadar for those insights. It's pretty amazing how far smartwatches have come just in the last few years.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, what's next? What's the future hold for these things?
That's the big question, isn't it? What's coming next for smartwatches? One thing we're already seeing is this focus on even more personalized health and fitness tracking, like really taking it to the next level.
I can totally see that. I mean, we've already gone from counting steps to measuring ECG and blood pressure right on your wrist. What could be next? It's kind of hard to imagine.
Well, picture this: a smartwatch that analyzes your sweat in real time, so you can see your hydration levels, electrolyte balance. Or even imagine a smartwatch that could detect early signs of illness just by picking up on tiny changes in your vital signs.
Oh, that sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But honestly, with how fast technology is moving, maybe it's not that far off.
Right. And it's not just about tracking more things. It's about using all that data in smarter ways to give you personalized insights, make recommendations that are just for you.
So instead of just spitting out a bunch of numbers, my smartwatch could actually tell me what those numbers mean and what I can do to, be healthier.
Exactly. Imagine a smartwatch that can make a custom workout plan based on your fitness level, your goals, or even suggest things you could eat based on how active you are, how well you sleep.
That would be so cool. It'd be like having a personal trainer and a nutritionist right there on my wrist.
Exactly. And speaking of personalization, another trend we're seeing is more customizable designs. Oh, interesting. So instead of picking from a few standard models, you could actually design your own smartwatch.
Maybe not design it from scratch, but brands are giving you more options. You can pick the case material, the color of the band, the watch face, even the complications.
So, I could pick everything to make it truly my own.
Yep. It's about giving people control over how their smartwatch looks, so it can reflect their style.
I love that. Having a smartwatch that's truly unique. Okay, what else? What other futuristic smartwatch stuff is on the horizon?
Well, one really exciting thing is the integration of artificial intelligence, or AI, into smartwatches.
Whoa! AI and smartwatches, what would that even look like?
Think about it, a smartwatch that learns your habits, your preferences, and then it can actually anticipate your needs before you even know you have them.
Okay, so If I always check the weather first thing in the morning, my smartwatch would automatically show me the forecast as soon as I wake up.
Exactly. Or let's say you order takeout from the same place every Friday night. Your smartwatch could remind you to put in your order ahead of time. Ooh, that would be so handy. It's like having a little assistant who knows you better than you know yourself.
That's the idea. And AI could also make health and fitness tracking even more accurate and reliable.
So my smartwatch could tell the difference between my heart rate being up, because I'm working out hard, versus, being stressed out.
Right. The possibilities are pretty amazing. And as AI gets more advanced, we can expect to see some really incredible personalized features on smartwatches.
This is all so cool. It's crazy to think about how much smartwatches could change our lives in the next few years.
I know, it's really exciting. And it's not just about convenience. It's about using technology to help people live healthier, happier lives.
Well said. I can't wait to see what the future holds for smartwatches. And thanks to this deep dive, I think I have a pretty good idea of which one I want to try out next.
Awesome. Remember, it's all about finding that perfect fit for you, your needs, what you like. There's no one size fits all.
So true. And for anyone who wants to explore the world of smartwatches even more, make sure to check out the full Tech Radar article. We'll put the link in our show notes.
And until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep embracing the amazing world of technology.